And welcome to Habs Unfiltered, episode 209. I'm your host, Blaine Pudvey, joined now by my co-host, Treg Wilson.
Hello.
Welcome back, you slack and idle thing.
Yeah.
Cutting down
Busy
trees
times.
and stuff.
Busy times.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
we
yeah.
are joined as well by our special guest, returnee and friend of the show, Grant McCagg. How's it going, Grant?
Cutting down trees. Well, that's relevant because it looks like some people are going to get the axe here.
It does.
That's a perfect segue.
So Grant joins us on a day that, well, on a weekend that I think he nailed it. Shit's getting cut down. The Canadians are, it looks like they're going to do some clear cutting here. And Scott Mellanby is out. Jeff Gorton is probably going to be coming in. So we're going to just dig into this and we'll start right off the top. Now, Treg, you had a question for Grant that I think is very, very relevant to this whole situation.
Yeah. Where do you feel like the Elliot Friedman came out last night and said Canadians were given, by the way, it's Sunday, the 28th, saying that they had permission to talk to Jeff Gorton, former GM of the New York Rangers, but to come in as president of hockey operations. Why do you think Molson? I mean, obviously, him as a GM, the language thing is going to be a thing. But why now is Molson going with the hockey of operations? Where, I mean, he could have done the same thing with Bergevin 10 years ago because Bergevin was a brand new GM. Why do you think he's going that route now?
Well, after a decade of trying it with him as the president of hockey operations, as I posted in a tweet there yesterday, I think 4 games under 500 in those 9.5 years. So obviously it hasn't worked. So you got to go in a different direction. I mean, I've been harping on it for four years now that Molson shouldn't be the president of hockey operations. He's got a full-time gig as a running Molson. Like bring in somebody that's going to be dedicating full-time, efforts to preside over the hockey operations. Someone with some hockey background with lots of connections that can, oversee everything. And I mean, it would have been handy to have that guy, weighing in on a decision on drafting Logan Mailloux. And I think that may have been the straw that broke the camel's back as far as that went, where afterwards Molson, it dawned on him, hey, maybe we should have had that. Maybe we should have had that buffer between me and Bergevin for that decision.
Well, Eric Engels posted a tweet yesterday, I think kind of talks directly to this. And it's a quote from Molson from 2020. And it says, I have no intention to hire another president of hockey. There are very few teams across the NHL that do so, and there are a lot of reasons why. Mark is one of the most respected GMs in hockey. He's also amongst the most experienced and will continue to report to me. He is very well surrounded by people with a lot of experience, including Scott Mellanby, Martin Lapointe, and John Sedgwick. There is a culture team-wide and surrounding Mark to never be afraid to question the decisions we take. So he points directly to the experience that Bergevin has. He says that they're a team basically, but if you're going to be moving on from that GM, maybe you find yourself a new touchstone. That could be why he's looking at a new president.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, to me, it makes sense because it's like Grant said, he got other things that's going on. He can't focus entirely on hockey. And you need a guy there, especially a hockey guy with hockey experience to, advise and guide the GM or help the GM at making the decisions. I mean, I know, Grant, you would know more about the Logan Mailloux situation and why he was drafted in the first place, but that to me, yeah, that came out of left field, and it was one of those "what were you thinking" moments. And I would assume if you had a president of hockey operation like Gorton or whoever, they probably would have stepped in and said, "No, we're not doing that." That's what I think. Like, I don't know how involved Molson is with the draft at all, so I don't know how he would have, how that.
Yeah, well, I think he ultimately left it up to Bergevin, and ultimately that ended up being a mistake. They didn't read the room, as far as the way society is going these days, and social media and the backlash. I mean, I could have predicted it. If they'd asked me, I'd have told them, no, this isn't a good idea. So, I think it finally dawned on them that, hey, maybe leaving all of these decisions up to Bergevin, the last 10 years, which I think is probably what went down for the most part. Maybe that wasn't such a great idea, because that one, the reputation of the club has never been as tarnished as it was after that.
Was that an all Bergevin decision, do you think?
Pardon me?
Was that an all Bergevin decision, do you think?
All Bergevin. Well,
like,
I think,
with Timmins and Bergevin, the scouting staff, do you think they agreed on it, or do you think it was, this is who I want, this is who we're taking? Similar to the Louis LeBlanc, Chris Kreider thing with Gainey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even that, there's differing stories on, unless you're a fly in the room, who knows exactly what went down. But I mean, I spoke with Trevor leading up to the draft more than once about Mayu, and he thought he was one of the best 10 players in the draft. And his job, as he's explained to me, is to recommend the best possible draft pick, and I'm pretty sure that's who he recommended, and Bergevin was on board with it.
And I don't believe that Jeff Gorton would have made a difference in the selection of Logan Mailloux. He's the one that brought in Tony DeAngelo to the Rangers. So, I mean,
well,
it's hard to say that he would do something different.
Yeah, maybe not, but I think it's a little different circumstances with DeAngelo and Mayu. I mean, that's and when he brought in DeAngelo, some of the hijinks that's happened since hadn't happened at that point either, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's you're right, we're speculating, but I do think that it's one of the reasons why Molson said, well, I made a mistake here, and maybe we should have somebody else in place that can take the heat the next time instead of me. Who knows? But I think it dawned on him that okay, we aired there, and maybe having one more layer between me and the GM is a good idea.
And bringing in a president of hockey operations, that it's obvious that whoever comes in as the next GM, the remainder of the staff, they're going to have to fall in line with whatever his vision is for this team. And Jeff Gorton has a track record where he likes a certain style of young player. He likes those mobile, high speed, high skilled type of players. Do you think that's going to make a huge difference right away with the Canadians, or is it going to take a good solid year based on?
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on what he does with the coaching staff too, right?
Yeah.
I think a change in philosophy is needed in Montreal. It's been the conservative approach for the last decade hasn't really worked. Going with the veterans over the young players all the time hasn't worked, and I believe Gorton has a different mindset when it comes to that. I think he's going to encourage giving the good young players that are high draft picks opportunity, which for whatever reason Bergevin has. It's almost like he just why bother drafting them even? They're like, because they end up burying them, they end up not giving them an opportunity and moving them. Like it happened time and time again. Sherbach was a great example. I mean, I watched him that year where he was just running the power play in the AHL. There wasn't a better guy on the power play in the AHL when he got called up, and he didn't play a shift on the power play. And then, oh well, you can't, board battles. Well, who cares about board battles if you're setting everybody up on the power play? They've had the worst power play in the NHL, 29th worst under Bergevin since he came in, and he never, it, it seemed like it was never. He kept bringing in conservative coaches that didn't want to give rookies and young players an opportunity when it wasn't working. The team, even when the team like this year, 5-15, and you keep trotting out Sherratt and Petrie on the power play. Ben Sherratt has 1 power play point in his career, and instead of Norlinder, who great in the SHL the last 2 years when he played in the power play, never given him an opportunity. I think finally it's dawned on Molson that, hey, this isn't, fans have had enough. He's even had enough. It's time to go in a different direction where you embrace the young players that you draft. You give them opportunity. If they fail, fine, but you give them opportunity. And Bergevin, for whatever reasons, he's got to. It's always the guys that he brings in free agency, the guys that were never drafted, that are never going to develop into top 6 guys. They get the opportunities, they get the ice time, and the young high drafted players either sit in the AHL, they sit in the stands, or they're fourth liners. Like, and it's happening again with Poehling. Poehling's looked great since he got called up. What did he play again last night? 8 minutes with pluggers, like Eric.
9:52.
Armia is doing absolutely nothing, and you stick him with Armia every freaking game. Like, it's just so frustrating. And I really hope that getting in Gorton, who, New York gave opportunity to the young players right from day one. They put them in top 6 roles, and I think he had a lot to do with it. And I think there will be that change in philosophy in Montreal, and it's long overdue.
Yeah, I was just researching Gordon. I'm going to write an article for the Hockey Writers about him, and I didn't know this, but his 4-month internship of GM of the Bruins, he pretty much built their championship team in that 4 months. He drafted Brad Marchand, Phil Kessel, and Lucic. He signed Chara and Mark Savard, and he traded Raycroft for Tuukka Rask, all in those 4 months. Yeah. Now, if you go back to their championship run, they were all the players that got them to the championship run. Then they replaced him with Peter Chiarelli, and we all know how that kind of worked out. But so this guy has a history. Same with in New York. He drafted some of the better players, or he was involved with the drafting of some of the better players they have. He brought in players to help those support cast, to help those younger players, bring them up. And I agree completely with you, Grant.
Yeah, but all that's all well and good. But where are the Rangers right now?
Well, the Rangers are, he said
at the top
of the
standings,
and he said to the fans, we're going to do a rebuild, and the owners didn't like that, and here we are. But I agree with Grant. Montreal gets these young players, and I thought Dom Ducharme would be different. I thought we've seen him here in Halifax. We've seen he was a good coach for the players here, but mind you, he had a pretty stacked team as well. But and I thought, here we are, Cole Caulfield. He's going to get, whether he's, and I don't think Cole Caulfield played bad in the 10 games that he was before he went to Laval. I don't think he played bad. He wasn't hitting the net, or his stick was a little tight, but I don't think he was playing bad hockey. He goes to Laval. As soon as he gets his confidence up, they bring him back up, and he's playing 10 minutes. I think he was on the 3rd line or something like last night or something like that. And it doesn't make any sense to me. He just scored the other game, and now you're reduced. Same with Poehling. I agree exactly with you. I was shocked with his minutes last night. Poehling should be the 2nd or 3rd line center.
Yeah,
guaranteed.
I mean, how are you going? Like, when you keep shattering these guys' confidence, you saw it over and over again. Like Boyu, Tenorti. I mean, these guys are still playing the NHL. but they didn't, they sat them in the stands, they played them 8 minutes they sent them to the AHL over and over again, and were impatient with them, didn't let them develop properly, and got rid of them. Like it happened over and over again with under Bergevin. And as far as I'm concerned, the GM and the scouting staff and the coaches all have to be on the same page. And I did not see that with Bergevin. It was, oh no, I'm going to bring in these, former sixth round draft picks to play instead of a top 50 pick. Yeah, and it just, they didn't have upside. They were never going to develop into top 6 players, but Kate kept doing that, and not giving the opportunity to the guys. I mean, all it does is up those players' value. If you don't like them that much, still, their point totals are going to be higher. They're going to have a higher asset value and trade them. But I mean, Delarose on waivers, Sherbak on waivers, like losing all these guys for nothing because they buried them, shattered their confidence, and then then lost them for nothing. And it happened over and over again. As much as I love it, Bergevin's trades, there has to be more than that. What I liked about Gorton was he did a true rebuild. Like New York had 3 first-round draft picks, when they said they're going to do a rebuild. And I mean, that to me is what needs to be done. Like, I'd love to see the Canadians go into the draft this year with 3 first-round draft picks, a couple of maybe 3 or 4 second-round picks, and do a true restock. They've taken a step back this year, but it was a rebuild, and you're gonna, just like Bergevin when he first came into Montreal. Did anyone expect them to go to the, you look back at that roster? I mean, did anyone expect them to go to the conference finals right away? Yeah, against Philly. I mean, that shouldn't have happened, but it did. And then the expectations are high the next year, and they slide back. And you think, oh well, what's he doing? And I think the same thing happened in New York. It was good. It looked so promising that first year, and then they slide back a bit, and you say, oh well, rebuilds take time. Sometimes you overachieve, and then there's a slide back the next year. But 2 or 3 years down the road, New York Rangers are going to be a really good team. I mean, getting Adam Fox was just a genius move as far as I'm concerned. And he made a lot of good moves. I really liked what he did. And I think they ran out of patience because, that fight where Wilson kind of ran roughshod over, Panarin and Buchnevich, and the owner gets talking with Messier and all the guys that, oh yeah, we got to get tougher, this and that. And so they fired Gordon, at the end of the year because of that, and because they weren't instantly great. I think they were impatient, and I think they shouldn't have fired him. And if Montreal gets him, I think that's going to be one of the smartest moves that Molson has made since he bought the team again.
But can the fans and the media handle a proper rebuild in Montreal?
I don't think it's going to be. Yeah, I think it's only going to take one. Sell off. I mean, they can sell off 5 or 6 guys over the next month and a half, get a bunch of high draft picks, and if Price is coming back and he's good and all that stuff, all the good young players, like there's. Gooley, Harris, you name it. Those guys are going to improve the defense like in a hurry. Next year, the Montreal's defense is going to be a lot better. Just next year alone. 2 years from now, I think they'll have one of the more solid defenses in the league. There's some great young talent that's just a year away. If you can augment that with a top 5 pick that'll probably be playing next year or certainly the year after. It's only going to take a year to turn this around. There's a lot of good young pieces, Suzuki and on, Caulfield. You augment them with some good young talent, maybe get a good free agent, maybe swing an Adam Fox type trade if you can. This team, last year they're in the Cup finals, right? it doesn't take long to go from, the penthouse to the outhouse and back. I think they can be back in the a contender within a year. Yeah, and do have a lot of high draft picks in this one draft, and all the good ones that are coming in. The future would look really bright, I think, and I'm hoping that they sell off a bunch of, there's too many forwards that they don't make sense. There's too many guys that play the same kind of style, little small, still on the wing and stuff, and the Hoffmans and the Foley's and that. At least one of those guys has got to go. Sherrod's got to go. Maybe Petrie's got to go. You can load up pretty good for the draft, and I think they only need to do it for 1 year.
Now, before we get to the draft, you mentioned Harris earlier, and he's kind of Montreal's Adam Fox. I'm not comparing him, saying he's going to become a Norris winner in a couple of years, but he's an NCAA, soon to be UFA. You've talked to him a few times with through Recrutes.ca. Shameless plug. What's your expectation with him coming to Montreal?
I believe he has no intention of signing elsewhere. He's a solid kid, not selfish, very selfless from what smart kid. He wanted to go back to school, get his degree. They underachieved last year. He was handed the captaincy, which he took as a huge honor. He returns, he gets to be the captain. He's a loyal kid, and I think that loyalty will extend to being loyal to the Canadians, the team that drafted him, that used an asset on him. And like he says, his mom is now a Habs fan. He's a Habs fan. All this talk, oh well, he grew up in Boston, so he's gonna go to Boston. Well, sometimes that happens, but it happens less than you think. I can't recall a Montreal Canadian draft pick that ever went back in the draft. That was college, that went the college route and then didn't sign with the club. I've thought about it, looked at their drafts, and I don't know that it's ever happened. Gorton, had success getting Fox there. Hopefully, he'll have success getting Harris, convincing Harris to come. And as things have turned out, there's opportunity. Like Harris could play for the club at the end of this year. And they might even give him say, look, we guarantee you, that often happens with these college guys. Well, we guarantee you that you're gonna play with the club if you sign with us and come in after the college season. So I'm very confident that Harris is going to sign with the Canadians.
Now you brought up the draft and how this draft is a good one if you're going to stumble, this is a good year to do it. So why don't you give us an idea?
I didn't say that.
Well, I am.
Oh, okay. I disagree, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's happening again, I think. Every year the Canadians end up with a top 5 pick. It's not a great draft. I don't see this as being one of the better drafts. It's unfortunate, but I mean, if they get a top 5 pick, they're getting a good player, like Kotkaniemi, for all the, I mean, it's early. He's still top 5 in points from his draft class, and he probably will be when his career is over, but it wasn't after the first 2 guys that they weren't superstars. And it might be the case again this year that they're not getting McDavid this year, regardless of where they end up. Shane Wright's been overrated because he was a exceptional draft status and played early and all that. It's going to be a hell of a second line centerman. Maybe a first line center, but franchise center, I don't see it. I don't know that there's any franchise guys per se this year, but Kemo might be a Kane. along those lines. So, but they have to get him right. Do they end up with a top 3 pick? Do they get Kemmel? Yeah. So I mean, you never say never, but I don't see franchise guys in this draft. But they can get a first liner, if it all turns out well, and that would be, they need a first line winger. They don't really have one. Caulfield may become a first line winger, but you look at who's in the organization, who's on the club. It's something that's been missing for a long time, and I think Suzuki can be a first line center, but he needs a legitimate first line winger on his side.
Now you've put out your early picks at recruits.ca on your draft guide. Who would fit that role for the Canadians?
First line winger?
Yes.
Well, either Kemmel or Miroshnichenko, or however you pronounce it there. You had to, of course, ask, okay?
Yep.
Miro, the Russian kid.
The Russian kid.
Yeah.
Now, you went against the projected picks that most people have been putting their lists out, their mock drafts. You changed it a little bit. You went with someone different at number 1. Who was that?
Kemmel. Yeah. That's the buzz in the in the NHL, that he's number 1 till further notice at this point. It might end up being Wright again. Wright had 2 goals and assists last night. He keeps, he starts to fill the net and play like he's capable of playing, then he can still go first overall. But I think right now it's kind of a pick your poison. It's one or the other. But I think Kemmel has done stuff that's just amazing. Goal a game in the Finnish men's league at his age. It's never been done before. I mean, even Timo Solani wasn't scoring a goal a game at that age in the FHL. So he's an exciting player, and that to me is what they need. They need the Pasternak type potential, Kane type potential winger. Whether he, whether he becomes a franchise player, that's another. But you don't need, you need 3 good first line guys. They don't necessarily have to be franchise guys to win. And I think that's the missing piece right now, along with, a franchise defenseman, of course, but I don't see any of those in this draft.
Now, how important is that World Juniors to opening up some people's eyes to these guys that you're mentioning?
Yeah, well, it'll certainly get the wannabe scouts and the armchair scouts. They'll have a better idea after we'll see if Kemmel outplays Wright, and if he does, then people will start saying maybe Grant's right about that. Maybe Wright has a fantastic under 20, and Kemmel struggles, and they say that I'm full of crap. But that will be interesting. That will be the real first litmus test for these guys, the top guys, head to head. And the 2 Russians, too, Yurov and Miro, are very highly touted. Juracek is probably the top rated defenseman. He'll be there too. So it'll be nice to see these guys head to head, because especially this year, they haven't played head to head because of last year, because there wasn't, U18s, Ivan Holenka and stuff. Montreal, Canada hasn't been putting teams in a lot of these competitions. So you're kind of guessing, where these guys are head to head, because they haven't played against each other much. So I think it'll be important, but you always, it's only part of the process. You certainly never just go by what happens at the World Juniors as far as who's the best.
Now, do you think going into this new season, going into this draft, and what we've talked about with developing that, with maybe Gorton coming in and Bergevin going out, Do you think they need to overhaul their drafting and developing as well?
Well, do I think Timmins is gonna lose his job?
Well, not necessarily, but I mean,
Well, I mean, it's a distinct possibility. How many head scouts have survived 4 GMs, you know?
true.
You know, I mean, yeah, I told him a week or two ago that he should update his resume, you know, because it could be coming. I mean, I don't. Uh, I think the Mayu pick is may end up hurting. You know, at the end of the day, that might be what weighs it where they say, look, we got to move on here. I hope not, but from a personal standpoint, as a friend of mine, I almost think that he should get out of Montreal. You know, it's just been. I mean, it's got to be tough. The language, you know, the language issue with the picks all the time and all the criticisms about, you know, not picking Quebec players and this and that and the pressure and how poorly he's drafted when it's not the case. People don't look deep into, you know, they don't compare it to other teams. They just look at the draft guys that don't make it and assume that he's been horrible at drafting, and it's not the case. He's you know, he's been dragged over the coals, front page articles in the French papers and everything. And honestly, you know, there's a part of me that hopes that he moves on just for his own peace of mind. You know, if he stays, well, I think he's one of the best in the business, and he's. I mean, it took time, but he's got one of the better scouting staffs in the league now. You know, they're a pretty solid group, and no one works harder than these guys. So, Gordon, it's hard to say. I don't know how well they know each other. So, usually a guy comes in like that, he'll bring in his own guys. You know, and one of the guys I mentioned it today was Daniel Dore, who worked with Jeff in Boston and in New York. You know, I've gotten to know Daniel pretty well. He's a super guy, you know, good scout. I wouldn't be surprised if someone like that gets brought in now, whether it's to replace Trevor or not. I don't know, but yeah, that's all up in the air now. You know, I can't say one way or another whether I think Trevor's going to keep his job. I would lean towards that he's probably not going to keep his job, but I'm hoping he does, and we'll see what happens.
My speculation with Gorton is he's going to come in and just clean house and bring in all his own people, do his own. I mean, I wrote an article on Trevor Timmins. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, I know you're big on him. I just said he was an average. He wasn't terrible. He wasn't terrible at driving. I have him as around average or above average. But I didn't really base it on. I also say in the article that you have to take the draft as the year the draft happened, not 5 years later, because there's a lot of guys, and I seen a chart on Timmins saying this guy was drafted exactly where he's supposed to be, like say Sherback, right? He was scouted at to be at, I forget what number he was picked at. And another thing I found interesting when we researched it, during his 17, 18 years with the Canadians averaged 19th place in drafting. So it's not like he had a handful of top 10 or top 5 picks to, I mean, he only had three top 5 picks and the whole time he was there in 17 years. So it's hard to, like you say, if you don't know how the draft works, you don't know how it is. I mean, as I wrote the article, I learned more, and really I'm kind of conflicted with the article I wrote, but if you're not there and you don't know, like you say, oh, he's terrible at drafting. Well, when you're drafting above 20, 80% of the time, it's a bit of a crapshoot. I mean, am I wrong?
Very few of his picks you could say, well, you know, even the first rounders were terrible value when you evaluate them down the road. Louis LeBlanc would end up, you know, Kostitsin, those two guys, I guess, really, and Fisher. Those 3 picks were, you know, ended up not being good ones. But I mean, out of 18 years, you know, and what Fisher was 20th overall in a horrible draft. So even then, like if you look at, you know, well, they could have had Mark Matera instead or something, you know, that was a better pick. Well, Mark Matera never made it either, you know. So the tendency is in years where he didn't make a great pick, like the LeBlanc draft's another one. I know personally because I was, you know, I was on the staff at the time, part time. He liked Kreider a lot, and if there hadn't been the, you know, if it hadn't been in Montreal, the pressure of picking the French Canadian guy, I'm pretty sure that was his guy, you know. So there's a lot of stuff, you know, circumstances, a lot of stuff we don't know about that happened, and you know, it's funny, the years that they traded away picks too, like. I know he loved John Carlson, and I, without a doubt, if they wouldn't have traded for Tanguay that year, John Carlson was the Habs pick. And same thing with Adam Fox. He thought he was a first rounder. I ranked him in the first round. Trevor thought he was a first rounder. Montreal had the 39th and 44th pick. They were taking Fox if they hadn't traded those two picks for Shaw. You know, these are circumstances that are out of his control, right?
Yeah.
Pasternak, there's no way they pass on Pasternak if Boston doesn't pick him with the 25th pick. You know, Montreal was next and they picked Sherbak. It's funny at the time, you know, I used to go on HF boards and that. He was getting all the criticism for taking the guys with no upside like McCarron and Tenorti, and to a certain extent, justifiably. People love that pick. Oh yeah, he's the guy with the upside at that point. Such a great pick. And now, you know, of course, it's easy to go back and say, oh wow, terrible pick, you know. But again, you look at the draft, 26th overall. You look at other guys that were picked in the next 30 picks or whatever. Slim pickings, you know. So there's a lot, when you study, you have to look at other teams. You have to look at draft position, as you said, strength of the draft. You know, I did a couple of extensive draft studies through the years, and I was surprised, but Timmins in just about every category still ended up top 10 as far as the drafting efficiency goes, even in the lean years. So between 2008 and 2011, I believe he had something like 3 top 50 picks. You know, there's an example of, well, geez, why didn't he, you know, they didn't draft too many good players that went on. Well, if you don't have the ammunition, you know, you're not getting it. Bergevin the last 4 years changed his philosophy and brought in extra picks, lots of top 90 picks. And I mean, we haven't seen it yet because the drafts were, you know, the last 4 years, but there's a ton of players that I think are going to play in the NHL that Timmins drafted in the last 4 years that, you know, 4 or 5 years down the road, we're going to say, geez, he really did a good job of drafting, but you can't prove that now because you got to wait, you know? So yeah, you know, he had his misses but every friggin' team, you know, Tampa Bay gets lauded for, you know, and they should, for getting Kucherov and Point and Cirelli with picks outside of the top 50, you know, but they picked Brett Connolly 6th overall. They picked Slater Cuckoo 10th overall. They picked Cal Foote 13th overall. They had their misses too, you know. So it's the beauty of drafting 17-year-old kids. It's just such a crapshoot.
Yeah, they had hits with Point in the later rounds, Kucherov, like you mentioned, but then they also had Stamkos and Hedman, 2 anchors for a quality team.
Exactly.
Yeah, but they were guaranteed picks at the time they picked them.
That's right.
So, yeah,
exactly.
So I mean, it's not like, I mean, if you passed on Stamkos, then you're just an idiot.
And I mean, Yzerman inherited them. Yzerman gets put up on this lofty perch, but you know, if Bergevin had inherited Hedman and Stamkos, you know, he'd look like a lot smarter GM in the past decade than he did as well, you know.
Well, you look at Tampa Bay, they for several years under Yzerman, they'd have a really good season, then they'd have an absolute terrible season where they ended up with a very high pick. So they'd fall back, they get that top 3 pick, they'd add that player to their stable, they'd play again, do well, back down, up, down for about 8 years. And that's the team that was handed to Brisebois.
And what's going to happen with Montreal here, you know? Stanley Cup final to potentially a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
For the future, you know, yeah, it sucks for this year, but you couldn't ask for a better scenario, you know, as far as building for the future. Like, it's almost a blessing in a sense. Like, I hope they do end up with a top 5 pick. It can be especially with the parity at NHL. Montreal could be back in the friggin' Cup finals within 2 years after finishing bottom 3. It's very distinct possibility. So yeah, exactly. Tampa, you know, it fluctuated like that for him, and it actually was a good thing. You know, if you're not gonna be a contender, you're best off to really suck. You know, it's one or the other. It's when you're in the middle there, the treadmill teams, you know, where it's really hard to, because you're not getting a superstar with the 15th pick overall very often. You're just kind of treading water.
And that's exactly it. You're not going to get a Mike Bossy at 15. That's very rare.
Right, they did, but yeah.
It happened once. I don't see it happening again.
Yeah, that's right.
That's just it. You got,
and again,
yeah.
Was Pollock an idiot?
No.
Well, no, but he took Napier instead of you know, Mike Bossy. So does that mean he was an idiot? Like,
yes.
You know, no one has ever said that, right? Because he won 100 cups in 5 years or something. So, but you know, it's just an example of even the most, you know, heralded GMs and scouts in the NHL history screwed up at the draft. Everyone does it. It humbles a man in a hurry, or at least it should.
The one area of a team though that would really fix some of those misses, and I don't think in the next 4 years we're going to see all these picks that Timonson made in the last 4 years start to really step up, and then people are going to look back and say, "Wow, I guess he didn't suck." But I think that the area that they really need to focus on is the development, and I think someone like Jeff Gorton would be ideally suited to kind of revamp the Canadiens development program.
Yeah, I agree. You know, and I hope bring in coaches that are on the same page with them. You know, I really think the coaching, the management, and the scouting, they have to be on the same page, because it always seemed like that wasn't happening with Bergevin. You know, he didn't trust that, even give guys opportunities. They make the evaluation in camp that this guy's not good enough without ever giving him, you know, NHL opportunity. Sometimes you can be surprised. Sometimes you don't figure it out in practice. You're a coach, Blaine. Like, there have been guys that, you know, training camp or whatever, and you're like, but then they played a game and, you know, you change your mind on your evaluation of them. I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
I that happened to Paling, I think, this year before I thought he had a good camp. I thought he played a good, he wasn't flashy. He wasn't fancy, but he was winning his face-offs. He was winning board battles. He was doing his job, and they put him down, and they needed a center, but they put him down because they had Paquette and Perreault.
Right.
And I mean,
you had to appease Bergevin. Those were guys he signed, so can't, you know. I don't know, you know, they need a GM with smaller biceps, you know, so they're not intimidated by the free agents that they bring in.
Timmons shouldn't be intimidated.
Yeah. So you're out, you're out of the picture there, Trez. You're not going to be the guy that they sign
Working
up.
on it. I'm working on it.
You've been looking at these shirtless selfies on Instagram, have you?
Constantly.
They need
help.
a
If you are, you need help, Grant.
I'm not, what is Instagram? Is that a website?
You don't want to know.
no,
Yeah.
no.
I'm not on Instagram, so unfortunately, no, I haven't seen them.
You're lucky.
Yeah.
No, they need someone who's doing more cardio than weightlifting, just to get to outrun the GM.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it doesn't look like Who's been doing a pile of cardio. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, probably not. Now, Treg, you had another point.
I was just gonna say, I said it before. I'm just very surprised that Ducharme is not playing more the younger guys up higher. I thought he was going to be a difference maker from Julian and Tarian. I starting to think now maybe it's more pressure from the GM than it is more his coaching style. Maybe he's just coaching to what the GM wants him to coach. I mean, I've coached lacrosse for 20 years. I haven't coached much hockey, but even I know a guy like Norlinder or Niku or even Romanov should be on the power play before a guy like Sherratt. And I mean, Romanov's been there. I mean, mind you, Romanov's getting big minutes. He's third or fourth every night in minutes. But why isn't he not? Why didn't they give him a try on the power play? It's not like he has no offense whatsoever. He can move the puck. He can skate. Like, give him some. If you're not going to give it to Norlinder or Niku or someone like that, who I think was someone they brought in for their puck moving and their power play use, then what's the point? Like,
is it showcasing? Maybe they're showcasing.
Maybe I just thought of that too, Blaine. I thought maybe they're just showcasing, but why showcase Sherratt on the power play? He doesn't do the power play.
That'd be the last thing I'd be doing. Yeah.
Give him a little extra space, maybe, to
Right?
move around, make him look faster.
Yeah. And I mean, Petrie has 2 points on the season, and it's obvious. I think it's still his finger from getting it stuck in the photographer's thing, but he can't shoot right now. So he can't shoot and he can't pass either, apparently. What's he doing on the power play? You don't, it's like, well, we got to go with guys who we hope will, do something, not guys who should do something. I watched Norlinder for 2 years running the power play on a professional team in Sweden, a very good one. The first power play option and a very good one. Like he is a great passer. He's very good feet, good lateral mobility on the blue line. Sherratt's not that, Sherratt's not going to find the passing lane and the great pass. I don't get it. Stu Cowan mentioned, he said, well, he wants to win. Well, it doesn't seem like he wants to win. If he wants to win, he should use the best power play option, he's not there to just appease the vets. And when you're 5-15, for the life of me, I don't understand why you don't try different things. Sherratt and Petrie aren't getting it done. You've got a kid with all sorts of, that's his bread and butter is his power play. And he gets 10 seconds a night in power play. It just makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Well, in the game against 40 Pittsburgh, seconds in the game period. But
in the game against Pittsburgh, he got just under 10 minutes ice time. In that time, he got an assist, a nice one, and saved a goal.
Yes, that was a great tweet by you, and I agreed 100%. I may even have pressed like on that one, which is rare with your stuff.
Oh, you unblocked me? My condolences then.
Yeah.
He doesn't even follow me, Blaine, so don't even worry about it.
Yeah, but you're online to troll. You're just a troll, Treg.
Troll everyone. Troll. I just put out things that just to see what people's reactions would be, like the whole French GM thing.
Yeah. You get my blood boiling sometimes, Trev. So I have to take you in small doses. It's nothing personal.
Now my wife does the same thing.
Oh yeah. Now we got another section to go to, but before we move on to that next segment, I want to thank Boxing Rock Brewing out of Shelburne, Nova Scotia, for their sponsorship of the show with their wonderful Puck Off Lagered Ale. It's a delicious ale, and according to local folklore, Boxing Rock is where bickering seamen were left by their captain to sort out their differences. The choice: box until only one could return to the ship, or shake hands and share a beer. Either way, there are only a few short hours until high tide. We say drink up. And as a sailor who may have been boxed a few times in the ears, I agree. Just have a beer.
Habs are driving us all to drink there these days, Blaine.
And thanks to Boxing Rock, I don't have to pay for too much of it. Now, obviously, this weekend, there's quite a bit of stuff that's gone on. We've been talking about Jeff Gorton drafting, development, all because of these front office changes. And one of the little quirks that I was picking up on in this whole thing was that Scott Mellanby quit because he wasn't given the opportunity to take on this role. And Bergevin seemed to be surprised by this. So clearly Molson's going a different direction. And I don't know, this, to me, this is, it's good news. It's good news that the Canadians are trying to modernize. Now, Treg, what are your thoughts on this whole thing with Mellanby, with the new? Oh, and by the way, they did not talk to Patrick Roy. Jeff Mayer confirmed it. And dear God, please don't talk to Patrick Roy.
It was interesting because I'm trying to find a tweet now. One of the French Francophone reporters reported that apparently Marc Bergevin recommended Scott Mellanby as one of his replacements to manage.
Yeah, that was Louis Jean from TVA.
Yeah. And apparently Mark found out over social media that they were talking to Gordon. And I don't know how true this is. It's just, like I said, I just read it and he was hurt by it or whatever. But I would assume to know that Bergevin knows, Molson's probably moving some way. At least he does now. But I think if you're going to start new, then I don't think you're going to want to have someone who was already in the organization, already working with Bergevin, already under the same, it's like hiring Julian to replace Terrian. You're getting the same coach. You know what I mean? You're probably going to get, I don't know if Mellanby would have changed things, but I can understand why Molson's saying, no, I want people from the outside. I want new, new set of eyes, a new vision, a new personnel in place. And like
so
I
instead
said,
of just change for change's sake, you're doing actual change.
Well, yeah, using one of Bergevin's favorite lines. I'm not going to make a move to make a move. I think it's a good plan. I mean, I don't mind Mellanby. I thought Mellanby was a pretty good AGM. He dealt with all the Laval signings, I believe, and building the Laval team, the free agents and that.
This past year, yeah.
This past year. So, he's gone, and I respect him resigning. You're in line for a job as the big guy, and you don't get it, and like, what's the point of staying around? Like, if you hire someone new, I'm probably gone anyway. So instead of waiting just to get fired, I might as well just put my resignation in now and see where I can go. So nothing. I no grudge against Mellanby for doing that. I don't blame him one bit. But I mean, I've been kind of updating my Twitter since we've been chatting to see if there's any word on what's going on. We'll probably find out midnight tonight, but I think with Gorton coming in, that was the right move, Mellanby to resign, because I would truly believe he's just going to replace everybody and bring his own staff in. So,
well, you didn't find the Molson doing this to be somewhat unloyal or disloyal?
I don't know anyone new or not. I don't find him to be unloyal at all. Molson owns the team.
No.
If you know, you want loyalty, buy a dog. Is that the line you're looking for there, Blaine?
I was setting it up. I put it up there, up on the pedestal. Easy spike.
Uh,
Well, Bergevin said it, right?
That's
yeah,
right.
he said that about
So-
Markov, I think it was. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I weigh in here? Or?
Yes. By
yeah,
all
yeah,
means.
go ahead, Greg.
Oh, were you? Go ahead, Tredge. You have something else?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, what shocked me is the fact that Molson's been quiet for ever since he came out and said, yeah, sorry for drafting Logan Mailloux. He hasn't said a word, hasn't done anything, no one's even seen him. And then all of a sudden Saturday he's hiring a whole new staff. So I just find it really weird that it was complete silence until yesterday.
Well, I don't think it's the type of thing that you put out in public, you know.
No,
We're looking to
I agree.
You know, it's like the GM, like I tweeted there, like GMs aren't going to their players and saying we're shopping you around too often, you know. So why should the owner go to the GM and say we're looking for your replacement, you know? Especially if you don't find them, then it looks pretty stupid, you know.
Yeah.
Like you know, the guy's going to be pretty disgruntled, you know. I mean, I don't, you know, I understand why he's kept it low key and not, you know, and not told Bergevin about it or whatever. That's the way to do it, I believe. And yeah, I mean, Bergevin knows that it's a business, and you know, you want loyalty, get a dog, and that. I mean, from what I'm reading and understanding, is he didn't, you know, he didn't. It was Bergevin's decision not to sign again. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
he had a contract that he didn't sign, but no reasons were given why he didn't sign. But
well, I mean, yeah, why can what you know, like Louis Jean was saying, he's hurt. Well, okay.
What
You
the hell
know,
did he
that-
expect?
That it came out on Twitter. Well, okay. I mean, you know, there's lots of good hockey guys in there that get these scoops. You know, Drager and all those guys. You know, sooner or later, the word leaks out, and there's nothing you can do about it. I don't think Molson had to handle it any differently. You know, I think he has to do this. I've defended Bergevin for 10 years, but it's time for a change. You know,
I agree. I'm the same way. I was a big Bergevin defender. I don't think he was a bad GM for the 10 years he was there.
no,
But I totally agree. It's time for a new set of eyes. It's time for a new
yeah,
vision.
Well, he took
Yeah.
his shot. He got to the Stanley Cup final, and that
absolutely.
was great. It was a great run, but now what?
And I think, you know, he's done a great job. I posted more than once, like the organizational depth chart when he took over was abysmal. And now you know, it looks good. So, I mean, he's done his job to a certain degree, but the philosophies, he hasn't hired a good coach, as far as I'm concerned. He's dropped the ball on that every time. He gets defensemen that are in his image. Like, I don't know, it's like he wants 6 Mark Bergevins on the blue line, you know. It worked for one playoff run, but to think that, you know, especially in the regular season, that's going to bring you success, you know. Oh, we'll just have Ben Sherratt and whoever on the power play will be fine. Well, no, you know, in 10 years, how many puck moving defensemen that can also defend did he acquire? You know, they're coming thanks to the draft, but I mean, you know, Douglas Murray, David Schlemko, Carl Alsner, David Savard, you know, on and on. And to get it back to Mellenby, I'm glad he's not the GM, because I have not been overly impressed with the pro scouting, you know, like Savard, Paquette, and Perreault, you know. Did they scout these guys at the end of the year, or they look at video from 5 years ago, or, you know?
Was it a political move because of the language issue?
Is what a political move?
Bringing in Paquette, Perreault, Savard.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, that's part of it. I think there was probably a mandate from Molson to bring in some French Canadian, but yeah, I wouldn't have, like, they went gung ho. And how many, like, I mean, Trois Rivières, I think every player that they signed for Trois Rivières was Quebecois, you know. How are they going to adapt to English is the language of hockey? If all these kids are all comfortable and they're all talking to each other French all the time and they're not practicing their French, how do they develop into NHLers by being in that protected, shielded environment? Like I agree with getting a few French Canadians and appeasing the fan base and stuff, but to go that far overboard, like I think 18 of the 22 players on Trois Rivières are Quebecois. Like you didn't have to, get the best players and mix in best French Canadians that you can get, but don't just, completely go one way with it. I just think that they, for whatever reasons, it was Legault criticizing them on social media was just horrible, and they really overcompensated for it. You got to find a middle ground with that. I agree with I think it's a good idea to get good French Canadian players, but just getting them for the sake of getting them, I don't think it's the right philosophy either. So with Gorton in there, I don't think that there's going to be there's not going to be a strong nationalistic, we got to get the best Quebecers, because he's not a Quebecois. So he's going to want the best players. And it will be interesting to see his philosophy on GM and coaches too, whether, is Molson going to mandate, okay, it has to be a French Canadian GM, it has to be a French Canadian head coach. We'll see. I mean, I'm sure that's going to be part of the discussions. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for their meetings, see how they're going with that, whether Gordon says, look, I want to have the ability to, if not one or both, but at least one, to at least consider it being English. And we'll see. I mean, that'll be a whole new topic but I really truly believe, I think I understand the head coach, French Canadian, because every day they're speaking to the media. The fans want the sound bites. They want to, but a GM who maybe speaks once a month in a press conference where you could bring in a translator, I want the best GM, but from reports and what I'm hearing is it's probably going to be a French Canadian that Gordon can tutor, show the ropes, bring him along. That seems to be, that's what Elliot, I've exchanged a few DMs with Elliot over the last day, and he's, he thinks that that's what's happening, and so do other people that are close to the situation, seem to think that that's probably what happens.
So definitely Patrick Waugh.
No.
No, I'd guess Darsh, someone like Darsh
Madden
would
Jr.
probably
maybe?
be. Who?
Madden Jr. there over in Anaheim.
Maybe, yeah. Someone was saying he's not French.
Well, I'm pretty sure he is.
I think he is.
He's a francophone.
Yeah, I thought so.
I think he is.
His
I
dad was
thought
the
so.
GM for the Nordiques.
Yeah.
It?
Yeah, exactly. No.
And we know they only hire the francophones there.
He wouldn't even be. Yeah, nobody be bringing up Madden's name in it all the time unless he was. So yeah, that had surprised me. I didn't think that was right. Yeah, Madden's a possibility. Darsh, there's a few, but it's a few. I really wish that it wasn't, and none of those guys overly excites me, to be honest with you. There's no French Canadian candidate that I think is just, we gotta have him. I liked Bergevin, the hire. I liked that at the time. I thought that was a good one, but I don't see a fledgling Bergevin right now to scoop up. Maybe there's someone in the queue that they surprise with somebody that's been GM in the queue for the last few years. I wish it was Andre Tournier, but that boat has sailed
Yeah.
with him. Getting the
Jocelyn
job.
Tebow's doing a good job in Sherbrooke as GM down there.
Yeah,
Just
there you go.
just a name I'm bringing. I'm not saying he'd be a good NHL GM, but there's a
And the last time he was brought in, it went fantastic, didn't it? When he got traded for Patrick Roy, that went smooth.
They went to like 3 cups.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe this whole thing is just a shell game. They'll bring in someone who speaks French, to be tutored by Gordon, but Jeff Gordon is the pick for the team. He's really in charge.
That's right. As a face, as you know, is how it was said to me, and that's a possibility. And then that appeases the media to a certain degree. Well, okay, well, he's not GM, so we can't complain that much. We don't interview him all the time,
Yeah.
Like presidents aren't in front of the camera that often. So yeah, that's the other possibility where he tutors him and much like Brisebois, I guess, really in Tampa, right? But I mean, he didn't have the GM title, Eisenman did, but yeah, I mean, titles are titles, right? You take them with a grain of salt.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that he's going to be pretty hands-on if he ends up being the president of hockey operations.
All right. So final thoughts. Treg will let you go first.
Finally, final thoughts. This 35-minute interview got stretched again, eh?
Well, I mean, I try to lowball with the times. That way I don't disappoint people,
Well, it's been so enjoyable that I wish you could go 2 hours actually, Blaine, but carry on.
Sound like my wife.
Oh. She's never said that.
You're right. You're right.
But I think we're in the twilight of a new regime coming into Montreal. I think Molson's going to clean house. My final thoughts on it. I think it's time. Molson, Bergevin's 10 years had its up and downs. I don't think it was a bad 10 years. I don't think he was a bad GM. I like I said earlier, I supported him. But I think it's time for new eyes. I think it's time for a new direction. I agree. We have to get faster. The defense has to be better offensively than what they have now, and things got to change. I do believe Ducharme will stay until the end of the season, no matter who comes in. I don't see any point in hiring paying a third coach just to stumble through the season to the end anyway. And let's just hope whoever comes in new prepares the team for the off season and for the next year. And that's my final thoughts on it.
Bring in Cunnyworth for the rest of the year. I mean, the tank should be on, and who better to be captain in the tank than Ducharme at this point? Get Sherratt and Petrie out on the power play, and he's doing without even trying to. He's doing a great job of captain in the tank here right now. So sure, keep him on board.
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. Ducharme's staying, and he seems to be doing a great job. Well, get that top 5 pick for sure.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of Ducharme going back to last year. So before anyone says, and you can ask Blaine, before anyone says, I'm just saying it because he's like, I wasn't a big fan of Ducharme. I wanted Bouchard, but he's in Anaheim.
I wanted Andre Tournier, but anyway.
Well, yeah, he would have been a great pick. He was in Manitoba, I think, last year, was he not?
He was doing nothing last year. He was waiting for the OHL season to start.
Oh, right. You're right.
Ottawa 67s, and they never played.
Yeah.
No, I think they missed the boat on Tournier, and again, it for me that was Bergevin. Okay, he still is GM. I'll say that is his biggest failing was hiring coaches. I really don't think he did a good job of that at all.
Yeah, he seemed to hire coaches that with personalities that he liked to have when he was playing.
Yeah. And to bring up the point that Trej had mentioned about, Melody, more of the same thing. Well, when you hired Ducharme, who did he get tutored under? For 2 years in
It was
Montreal.
Julian.
Yeah. And how has he ended up? He's repeated the same mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vets, play the vets, appease the biceps version of it. If he brings in like Alex Hemsky, put him on the first line to start the season. Mark Streit, put him on the power play. Oh no, he can't skate anymore, but biceps Bergevin brought him in. I gotta please him. It's just been over and over and over again for 10 years. It's enough's enough. It's time to move on.
So what you're saying is old and can't skate. Bergevin might give him a chance. So you're saying, this is my last opportunity.
Yes.
You better get in there with the next day or two, Blaine.
Well, I better drive, because if I skated there, I'd never make it.
Finally get a pot found on the Canadiens defense.
Can't wear number 5 though. It's retired.
It's true.
55.
Oh,
Pizzetta.
No,
Pizzetta.
I'm not fighting Pizzetta. I'll ruin his head.
Yeah. Fight Reeves first, and then we'll see how you do.
Yeah. I'll just write my will before I do that.
Just bite him like Claude's son did last night.
Oh. Yeah.
I would never bite the hand that feeds me. All right. So I'd like to thank you, Grant, for coming on the show and talking about all this really heavy packed news cycle that we're in. Why don't you just give my listeners a quick idea of where to find you and your work?
Oh, you can't find me anywhere. I'm not saying where you want say where
Online.
I live and
Online. No, online.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. No, you'll find me on Twitter 24/7, especially right now.
I know the Leaf fans love you.
They do. Yeah, I think I've muted and blocked, every one of them so far. But they keep popping up. They come out of the woodwork. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, and that'll direct you to articles, and I'm always stating my opinions on there, and it's fun. In fact, I'm the minute that I get off here, I'm going on Twitter to right now is really a bad time to be away from Twitter, but anything for you, Blaine.
Much appreciated. I know Treg will be jumping right on Twitter to stir the pot again, because he's a troll.
I already did my tweet for the day.
That's what I've been told. Treg's just a troll. Like, yeah, that's why we love him. Come on. I just want to thank everybody, all our listeners, for continually checking in with us, listening, interacting with us, sending us ideas, sending us strange DMs. Vinny, please stop sending those pictures. It's getting really creepy. But I want to thank everyone for listening. And remember, if you were talking about it, so are we.